Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar about the 2018 CHIP grant application. My name is Samantha Carvalho, and I'm the CHIP manager. It looks like we've got 8 people in attendance. I think we're expecting maybe about 20 more. Just a few things about this webinar. I hope that you can, I think we have everybody muted right now. And if you want to ask a question, I will be answering questions throughout the webinar. You can post your questions in the question box, and then I will answer them as we go through. And I will unmute you if we can have an open discussion later in the webinar towards the end. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I downloaded the slides into the handout section, so you should be able to take those with you after the webinar. So today we're going to cover just generally what is the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and what is the CHIP program. We'll go over this year's application and scoring criteria. I'll cover a couple of the federal requirements because CHIP is funded with our federal home dollars. And then I will also let you know about a webinar that we will schedule the first week of November, which will be 1 month before the application deadline, which will give you enough time to go through the application and discuss it with staff at home and prepare some questions so that you can fill out the application in time for the deadline in December. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs manages 65 programs. We cover a lot of different topics in the state: affordable housing, community development, economic development, and planning. We're a great resource for your local governments, especially in our planning department, to give you any kind of data that you might need and to help you come up with good economic development, downtown development, and housing plans. We have 400 plus employees in 4 offices throughout the state. Our office is in the Atlanta area, but we have other regional offices that handle housing counseling and other services for citizens of Georgia. We manage around $270 million each year in federal and state funds. The affordable housing activities include everything from developing multifamily rental housing to doing assistance for single-family housing, either to assist existing homeowners or to help people become home buyers, and that's what CHIP covers. We also provide housing counseling, and we provide certification to housing counseling agencies. We have a number of down payment assistance packages. Most recently, we added Hardest Hit, which is for those communities that have faced a great deal of foreclosures. And with that program, we can offer $15,000 in down payment assistance. I strongly recommend that you look up our Georgia Dream website and look into some of the assistance you might be able to provide people in your communities. We provide rental vouchers, and we also provide a number of services for homeless people too, both shelter and services. So the CHIP program, like I said, is federally funded. It's funded through a source called HOME, which is funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And HOME is the largest funding source for affordable housing construction. It's a block grant that we receive for the state. We receive about $15 million annually in home funds, of which we provide between $4 and $6 million in an annual competitive grant to the CHIP program. So we'll provide between 10 and 15 grants per year to local governments. We usually receive about twice as many applications as we fund. So we're funding about 50% of the applications that we receive. The 2 activities in the funding round this year are home repairs for owner-occupied homes and housing construction, which would either be putting a new home on a vacant lot or reconstructing an existing home that's vacant for sale to eligible home buyers. This is an example of a house that we worked on with the Southwest Regional Commission. They administered a grant to the city of Sylvester and repaired this home. And you can see that the house in the before picture probably looks a lot like many houses around the state of Georgia. And the house afterwards looks like it'll probably last another, hopefully that roof will last another 20 or 30 years. You can see that The repairs included a new roof, updated the windows so they're more energy efficient. And in addition to this, usually what we see is, you can see the air conditioning units have been replaced with central heat and air. So we do a lot of roofs, a lot of window and door replacements, heating and air conditioning replacement, or brand new heating and air conditioning. We also see a lot of projects that update electrical and plumbing, and even replacing kitchen counters and replacing drywall and flooring. This is an example of a project that we worked on with the City of Washington. They did a complete rebuild of this neighborhood using combined CDBG, home funds, and other funds to tear down some old houses and rebuild new houses. In this particular project, these houses sold for, I think they sold for around $70,000. So they were affordable for home buyers in the area. Okay, so this program is not a direct benefit program. In other words, citizens cannot apply to the state for assistance. This is a program where we give grants to cities and counties, nonprofits, and public housing authorities who identify a target area within their communities to devote funds to. And then they will then seek out the homeowners to assist. New this year is we are allowing participating jurisdictions to apply. And let me explain what I mean by that. The state of Georgia is a home participating jurisdiction, which means that we receive the home funds directly from the federal government. In addition to the state, there are a number of participating jurisdictions in Georgia. These are the more urban, more metropolitan cities and counties in the state. And in previous years, we had not let them apply, but this year we're allowing PJs to apply. The only thing is that we are asking PJs to provide 50% cash match. I'm going to go into match later in the slides, but for those of you who are applying who are not participating jurisdictions, you do not have to provide any match. However, you will get points for more match that you provide. And like I said, I'll go into what I mean by match later. In addition, we are restricting the amount of funds in CHIP that we will give to PJs to up to 30% of our allocation. So in other words, if we have a lot of high-scoring PJs, we'll cut off the threshold of funding at 30%, which will allow the other 70% of our 2018 allocation to go to those communities that are not receiving home funds directly. Ineligible applicants are those applicants that are current CHIP grantees who will have 50% in unspent CHIP funds by the deadline for this application, which is December 1st. And the reason for this is because these grants have to be spent down in 2 years. And if a grantee has some money already in place and isn't able to meet the 50% expenditure deadline, then we would worry that we wouldn't be able to then expend this additional money within those 2 years. And on our website, we have a list of current grantees, so you can take a look and see if your community is a current CHIP grantee and that you might have some funding left over. The amounts that we will give to communities this year are $300,000 for home repair programs. So this would be the activity where you're helping existing homeowners with repairs to their homes. You'll get up to $300,000 for that. We will give you up to $600,000 if you're going to be doing the construction for sale grant. So that would be either if you're building new homes or if you're reconstructing existing homes to sell to eligible home buyers. And then $600,000 if you combine both activities. So if you intend to do housing rehab for existing homeowners and the new construction for home buyers. And then in addition to that, if you are awarded the program funds, you will also get 2% for administration to cover your overhead to administer the grant. You'll receive 2%, so that's $600,000 for the $300,000 grant or $12,000 for the $600,000 grant. Just to give you a couple of details about how the rehab grant works. Ordinarily, we see a lot of these housing rehabilitations to the expense for each house is up to $50,000. Because this is home funded, we have to bring the housing up to code, which might mean a lot of different expenses when you go into some of these older houses. And in addition to that, if the houses are older than 1978, we have to do lead testing and abatement on those items that are in the work write-up if they have lead in them. which can also bring the cost up. In addition to that, we expect construction costs this year to be much more expensive because of all the hurricanes we've had recently. We have a feeling that a lot of the labor, well, really the contractors themselves will be very busy, but also all of the materials are going to be pretty hard to get. I mentioned that you get 2% in administration for the full grant, but in addition to that, you will also receive $3,000 per home in project delivery costs. So for example, if you say to us that you're going to do 10 houses, then you'll receive $30,000 in project delivery expenses to cover all of your expenses with handling this grant on the homeowner end of it. For example, meeting with the homeowners, getting them income eligible, working with the contractors, submitting paperwork to us, etc. This program operates as a loan to the homeowners, but it is a 0% loan and it's forgivable. So in other words, the homeowners have to sign a lien that's put on their property. It's for 5 years if they're doing the home repair program. And if they stay in their house for the full 5 years, they don't owe anything back to the state. It's only in the case when somebody might sell their house during that time period that they might have to owe back a prorated amount. So for example, if they're in their house for 3 years and the repair cost was $50,000, they may owe back $20,000 if there's any proceeds left at the sale. So we won't go after anybody for any money if they don't receive it. The other thing I want to mention about this is that the reason why we do this is because we don't want to be giving the funds to homeowners and then have them go turn around and sell their house right away. This is a way to guarantee that the property stays in the hands of those who we intended for it to benefit. For the homebuyer grants, we don't have a set amount that we expect for the construction costs because that can vary from whether it's new construction or if you're going in and doing rehab. In our grant application, we are expecting to give points for those communities that already own the property or have some kind of site control over the property, and the definition of site control is in the application materials. We also want to make sure that the projects can go underway right away, which means we would like to see plans, photographs. If you have to work with your local historic preservation office, we want to see that you've consulted with them in advance to build in a historic neighborhood, or if you're renovating a historic home, so that there won't be any hiccups when we begin your grant. Like the $3,000 for project delivery, for these projects you receive $5,000. We have a 15% or up to $20,000 developer fee, and we can lower the sales price of the house for up to around $15,000. So as a home buyer subsidy to make the house more affordable. And just like with our rehab grant, this is assigned as a lien on the property. The affordability period can be between 5 and 15 years, depending on the amount of subsidy that is put into the house. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about that. There's a lot of HUD guidance on this. I can also help run some numbers with you if you want to send me some information or a conference call with me and explain that further. The application was released on September 1st. Today is September 28th. We're a little late getting this webinar out. There was a webinar that was on September 14th, but because that was the week of the hurricane, we're having this other one so that those of you who were affected by that could also attend. So you have a couple of months to fill out this application. It's due December 1st. All of our application material is online, and at the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you our website and go through some of the material itself. You will be submitting this by email in a number of PDFs, but you will have to mail in an application fee to us. All right, now I want to go over scoring, but before we get to scoring, I wanted to see if any of you have asked any questions so far. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Let me see if I can unmute you. I'm not sure if that is set up to, let's see if I can unmute everybody. No, it looks like this is set up to be muted, and I apologize for that. So Like I said before, if you have any questions, please feel free to fill them into the question box. There's also a chat box you can use too. So I'm going to go through the scoring a little bit, and then I'll take a little bit of break to answer questions. There are 100 points total in the application. Most of the points are going to be in capacity. I'm going to go over each section one by one. Then the next two categories are need and planning with 20 points each. And then leverage funds, that's where you may receive up to 10 points for the amount of match that you can provide into the grant. So first of all, let's talk about match. So if you provide up to 50% in match, you will receive the full credit of 10 points. And there's a number of different points you'll get for less percentages of match. That's detailed in the application materials. Match can either be cash or in kind. And in kind can be the value of the land that you are putting the housing on. It could be donated services, such as if you have a housing counseling agency that is going to donate some time to help your home buyers. It could also be waived fees, such as permitting fees through your local building inspection office. For capacity and project readiness, we have several sections in this application that deal with capacity. We're going to give the most points to those applicants who have experience with housing construction, and to those staff who have years of experience with housing construction. Of course, more points are given to those who have previous experience with managing SHIP itself or other programs like CDBG and NSP that the state administers. And we're asking you to provide some narratives about past experiences with managing programs such as these. We are deducting 1 point to current grantees who have funds in their 2011 and 2014 grant that will not have set up their projects by December 31st. Under the needs section, we have provided several different things. For one, we have a map at the back of the application packet, and I'll show it to you at the end of the presentation, that shows those counties that have not received any funding at all in the last 10 years. We're strongly encouraging communities from those areas to apply. We want to see that these funds can be used statewide. In addition, we are offering points to those communities that have been affected by federal disaster designation. So when we originally put this application out, that would have been the communities in South Georgia affected by tornadoes, and we did have some flooding also. We've added Hurricane Irma to that, and if hopefully we won't have any more disasters between now and December, but if we do have any, then we will add points for those too. We are also looking at those communities that are participating in the GIC program, which is the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. If you're not familiar with the grant, I'd be happy to provide information to you, but just briefly, it is a program where cities and counties can apply to get technical assistance over 3 years to provide housing plans for their communities, and they talk with technical experts about everything from code enforcement to long-term planning. And we want to encourage applicants who are participating in the program to apply for funding that DCA provides, so that we're matching good community planning with the funding that we have for the state. And then finally, under need, we recognize that there is a need for housing reconstruction all over the state of Georgia, and that in any community we're going to find people in need of repairs. But because this is a competitive program and we have limited funds, we really need you to justify the need for either home repairs or for new construction of affordable housing. So if you're applying for the home repair grant, we want you to show us with pictures and with narratives the housing conditions of the communities that you're serving. And then if you're going to be building houses, we want to see a market analysis to demonstrate that there is actually a demand for new affordable housing in your community. Oh, so planning, I covered a little bit of planning already. This is the section where we want to see whether you're participating in GIC, and you'll get points depending on your GIC participation, and then also that you have an affordable housing plan in place that includes this activity, whatever you're applying for, in your plan. All right, so let me break for questions again, see if anybody has asked anything. Doesn't look like we have any questions. I am just going to very, very briefly go over the key federal requirements for this grant because I want to reinforce the fact that this is a federal program. First of all, the beneficiaries of this program, whether they are the homeowners in need of home repair or the home buyers, have to make less than 80% of the average median income. Now, in the application material, we have a link to the HUD database that provides the information for that, so you can look up your county and see what a person at 80% AMI, what their income looks like. We require that each of our properties pass environmental clearance, which means I'm not saying that you have to pay for a phase 1 environmental on your property. What this means is that we're checking to make sure that we aren't putting housing in the flood zone, that we're not wrecking historic property, that we're not putting people in areas that are very noisy or near airport clear zones or near toxic sites. All of those things have to be put into consideration. We're also trying to protect the environment in this too. So for instance, we need to make sure that there are no endangered species on the lots that you're trying to build on. So that's a process that we do for each house. I mentioned historic preservation. That's very important to us too. We have to follow all the lead paint testing guidelines for any houses that are older than 1978. We also require labor and procurement, federal procurement standards. So you will be required to report on the number of businesses that you support that are minority owned or women owned, or Section 3, which would be people who are working who make under a certain amount of income or in public housing. And we also, in some cases, will have to follow Davis-Bacon, which is a rule that requires that you're paying a particular wage that's set by the federal government for the workers working on the job. Like I described before, all of these grants, so to speak, are secured through a lien on the people's property for a period of affordability that's set by the amount that we are providing. And lastly, and I really want to make sure that you understand this, that there is a rule that says that if we're trying to sell these houses, we have to sell them within 9 months of construction completion, or they have to be managed as rental property. And we don't want you to have to be landlords. We want to make sure that while we're helping you plan for these programs, if you're going to be building housing for sale, that you have a list of eligible home buyers in place during construction so that as soon as you get your certificate of occupancy, you can begin the sale process and not have to worry about bumping up against that 9-month deadline. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to host an application question and answer webinar. I haven't determined the date yet, but it'll be sometime during the first week in November. We will be sure to post the information at least a week before so that you can put it on your calendar. It'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions and also to hear from other applicants about their questions. And so this will be about a month before the application's due. So hopefully any last minute problems that you might have, or if there are some issues with the application that are unclear, we'll be able to clear all that up so that you'll have plenty of time to apply. And then lastly, this is our contact information. This CHIP email address goes into my inbox. This is my phone number, and this is the CHIP website. I'm going to go to this website and show you the application material. Oops. Okay, let me just check and make sure that you are seeing the same thing that I am seeing here. Okay. All right, so this is the CHIP website. It's just the general information on the DCA website about the CHIP program. And then if you scroll down, we have the webinar from the previous application webinar that was held on the 14th. I will be posting this one as well. And then we have the links at the bottom, which is what I'm going to show you right now. The first one I want to show you is the application manual itself. And you can download this, and it's been updated. We updated it a couple of days ago to include the Hurricane Irma information. So if you've already downloaded it in weeks past, please use this current version. I made a couple of changes to some typos that I found, but mostly we just added the new federal designation area to the 5 counties. And for your information, those 5 counties are Chatham, Liberty, McIntosh, Glenn, and Camden were the ones that were in the federal designation. So one thing I want to tell you is that if we have a Word version of the actual application form, and I'd be happy to email that to you. So all you have to do is email me and I will send it to you. Let me show you what the application form looks like. Oh, I don't know if this is working. Let me just go down into the document itself. So you have all the scoring criteria listed out. And then this is all just the detailed instructions about the application. And then this is just the form. So this form right here, this is in a PDF format. So just to make it easier for you, please just email me and I'll send you the Word version of it. Some of the other things I want to show you in this are that map that I was describing. So I'll go down here and show you. We made a map of all of the grants awarded by county. So it's a little bit misleading because in some cases we have funded one city or maybe a couple of cities within the county, but just for the purposes of making this a little bit easier to read on one page, we just went ahead and did it by county. So you can see that the red is the most current awardees, and then it goes to other colors. So in the 2017 ones are the red ones, and then the 2007 ones are the blue ones. But there are a lot of white counties in here, counties that have not been served with CHIP. We want to strongly encourage those counties to apply this year. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you was the administration manual. We put this on here. This is what, when you're awarded funds, you will receive this along with a lot of training on how to administer grants. But I want you to take a look at this if you have the time, because it'll show you step by step what it's like to administer a CHIP program. And it'll give you an idea of the flow of information, how you submit paperwork to us, what is required of you. And I think that it's a great way to get a good idea before you apply about what might be required. All right, so let me see if there are any other questions. It doesn't look like anyone submitted any other questions. So with that, I am going to stop this webinar, and I appreciate all of you for all of your hard work and your interest in the CHIP program. You know, the state gets this money from the federal government directly, but we can't have a direct impact on the citizens of the state without you. So you and your local decision making are what is required in this program. And our job is to facilitate that as well as possible. And so please feel free to reach out to me at any time with any questions about the application. Please take a look at all the material soon if you haven't already, and get with everyone in your local community who are partners, potential partners that could assist in this program. And I look forward to reading your applications when we get them in December. Oh, I should also mention that the way our time frame works is that the application's due December 1st, and then we'll take about 2 months to score them, and we may be getting back to you with questions for clarification if necessary during that time period. And then we intend to be making funding awards in February, and then the funds themselves will be available starting August 1st. So the funding cycle is August 1st of 2018 through July 31st of 2020. All right, so with that, I'm going to end this webinar. I hope that you all have a great rest of your week. And like I said, get in touch with me if you have any questions. Thank you so much.